This is Gregory Brown, and this is episode 6 of Writing a Programming Book. I'm a guy who's written a couple programming books before, and this series is about helping people who are interested in technical writing get better at it, and also just to know a little bit more about what the process is like. Today I want to talk a little bit about the topic of compression. What that means is basically taking a whole lot of words and making them a whole lot smaller so that you can express the same idea with less words. This is something that came up in a conversation with Mike Lukides at O'Reilly, and I was grateful to have that conversation with him because it really got me thinking about my own writing. What I'd like to do today is show you an example of this from my own work. I'm going to read the first part of a 5-part essay on code reviews, and then I'm going to read to you the way that I summarize that part in future parts of the series. And in doing so, I think you'll see an idea of what compression is all about and why it's important in writing. So let's get started. Part 1. When done well, code reviews will help you produce better software. That said, it's only possible to give an effective review if you know what to look for. For the most part, reviews that focus primarily on coding style, structure, and idioms tend to produce mediocre results at best. This may in some ways lead to better code, but better code on its own does not mean better software. As an analogy, it's easy to fall into a trap where code reviews become nothing more than exercise in technical proofreading. In doing this, you end up focusing on computational equivalent of grammar and punctuation and the particular wording of particular phrases, and you forget that the main goal is to tell a meaningful story. When you cannot see the forest for the trees, bad things happen. How can we do better than that? It's a tricky question without a one-size-fits-all answer. To help you identify the kinds of questions that will lead you to focus on substance rather than style in code reviews, I'll rattle off a few now and see if you can pick up a pattern. Got your thinking cap on yet? Good, let's do this. Does this code actually solve the problem it's meant to solve? Check the bug reports or feature requests and any supporting documentation or discussions to make sure. When shipped, will this improvement increase the value of the project as a whole? Sometimes things sound better on paper than they turn out in practice, so there's no time like the present to go back to the drawing board if what was built might end up being more trouble than it's worth to ship and maintain. If the answer to either of these questions above is no, then stop right here. Don't even look at the code. If you're not the one in charge of deciding what features and fixes to get worked on and when, get in touch with the person who is and talk things through. Reviewing code that won't survive in production is a giant waste of time. Okay, the code being reviewed solves the real problem. And the benefits of solving the problem in a particular way outweigh the costs? Great, we can move on. Is the code able to run somewhere other than the original developer's machine? Running live in production as a developer's only feature is best, but a staging environment or even another developer's machine can be good enough as a smoke test. If you're not able to easily verify this, your process is broken, and this needs fixing before you can do effective code reviews. Did you need to ask someone for help in order to get the code running and to do your review, whether it's deployed somewhere or on your own machine? If so, either documentation is needed or whatever setup process you did needs to be automated or both. Now, actually try out the planned improvement from the perspective of the developer or the people who will use the software. Did this feature or fix work the way that you expected to? Was anything awkward, missing, or broken? Have a conversation about that, then pause the review until those issues are dealt with. If this is an early stage review, you can choose to focus on certain issues and ignore other details that you will know will be sorted out later, but it pays to be explicit here. If you've made it this far, you now have working software that solves a real, worthwhile problem, and it's running somewhere other than a single developer's machine. It's not crashing and burning in weird ways, and it's not missing any obviously important bits of functionality. You know that anyone else who might want to review this work will be able to do so easily because the process of getting the code up and running has either been documented or automated or both. How much code have you read at this point in the review? In a well-organized project, the answer may be none. but you've done quite a bit to uphold high software quality standards just by looking at things from the outside in. It may have only costed you a few minutes of time, but it's a critically important first step to giving a great code review. Now, this essay is useful and it covers an important topic. It was also written in like an hour or so, so it isn't the most well-edited thing in the world. As I went through subsequent sections, I needed to reference back the previous parts and summarize them. By the middle of the series, I summarized all of what you had just heard as this. Code reviews are more than just simple technical proofreading exercises. They should start with a question of overall software quality as perceived by the project stakeholders and users, and then only focus on the internal quality concerns once the changes have been validated from the outside in. So that's not so bad, right? It loses some of the stuff that was said, but it preserves the main idea. By the very end of this series, though, I got it down to this. Code reviews are more than just technical proofreading exercises. The first question should always be, does this code reliably solve a real problem for the people who depend on this software? Now, if you think about that last statement, that's the main point. That's the meat of what it was said in the original essay. By the time I get around to actually writing this up as part of a book, I will start with that one small statement and build something that purely supports just that. And so even though the nature of compression is lossy, you lose some of the points from the original work. The process of distilling a work down into a simple statement is useful for a number of reasons. For one, it makes it so that you end up with a point that's easily memorable for the people who read the work. For two, if you are editing your work, it gives you a way to focus and edit the work so that it serves just that one point. And when I get around to working on this chapter and editing these things into place, I'll absolutely use that as a starting point. So this was a little bit longer than I want these videos to be, but I think it was a useful exercise. I hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you later.